Video running through the lapel mic. Let's see how that sounds. Let's see if I graze it against my shirt over and over again so the video is inaudible. It's been a long time. Welcome back. To those who are new, welcome. Most of you who are coming back probably know me from Dance Gavin Dance songwriting analysis. Today I want to do something a little bit more like in line of what I specialize in, and that's music data in general. This past weekend I released an EP, a 5-song album per se, music that I've been writing for the last year and a half, and this is the first release I've put out in over 10 years. We're in a very interesting time now to release music because now there's never been a better opportunity to get feedback from data, basically put something out into the universe and see the statistics on how many people are seeing it, how many people are listening to it, where in the country it's getting served. 10 years ago when I was first writing music, I had something called MySpace and Facebook. And the only way I knew things were getting anywhere was this little music player that was going up from like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 plays. I had no idea where those plays were coming from, who they were reaching. So it's a little bit more refreshing now that, even though I'm starting from nothing, brand new audience, brand new music, I've now got this data to work with. Let's start recording the screen, that'll help. So now we are capturing the screen now. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. For anyone that's making music to make money, I'm going to have to break it to you right now, and you probably heard this from many, many other people. It's going to be a very, very hard uphill battle. There's plenty of much easier ways to make money. If you get into marketing, you make a pretty comfortable living. If you wanted to drive a bus for 60 hours a week, you could be making 100 grand a year. So if you're doing it for money, music is the hardest way to make money. I'm purely doing it for curiosity. I like to learn, so this whole thing is a learning experience for me. 10 years ago when I was 20, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, so this is going to be a lot more of a entertaining journey for me to now be intentional, know how to plan, know how to look at data. Again, don't do it for the money. Do it to learn, do it for the experience. And if you are looking for money, comment me, message me, find me on Instagram. I'll point you in the direction of 5 careers that will probably get you twice as much money as you're making now. I released this EP the 26th, and we have data up until the end of the 27th. So my first single, you can see here, I posted this on Halloween just to, I was curious. I wanted to see what people thought of the music that I was about to put out. And, it wasn't a good promotion strategy, but it's always good to at least put out a single, get some attention around that before you put out a larger work. We got some data here. Spring was on my EP. It's got 88 streams. Half of them are probably me. 32 listeners, 29 views. Again, I'm not sure what those mean, but this is the metric I'm very interested in, and that's the save rate, or the saves, the number of saves. So this is the number of times people saved my music to their library, which, that's a good sign. It's an intention to listen to that same song in the future. I get music coming into my recommendations playlist all the time. I hear it once and I'll like it because, it's usually from an artist I'm not familiar with. And if I don't save it, it's very likely I'll never hear that song again. So save, very important metric in my perspective. And you can see all this other data for all my other songs. They're not as high as this first one because, again, we had a single go out and then the rest of the EP was released just a couple days ago. So what I've done, actually, I want to make better sense of this data from Spotify. I don't really have options or extra columns to drill down into this data in different ways. So what I've done ahead of time, I've copied the data and moved it essentially into this spreadsheet right here. So I moved the data into a spreadsheet. You can see right here, again, streams, listeners, views, saves. What this will allow me to do now that I'm in a spreadsheet is create what I would call a save ratio. And what that essentially is going to be is a percentage of how many people save versus how many people listened. So actually there's two ways of doing this, but we'll call this one the listen save ratio. So what I'm going to do is put an equal sign. We're going to do saves divided by listeners and turn that into a percentage. So just for spring alone, 32 listeners, 18 saves. That is a 56% save ratio. So 56% of people that are hearing this song Spring are saving it. So again, not a lot of data. 32, that's a very small sample size. That would be what we call a small sample of users, because this is saying one thing right now, 56%, but if that scales to like 1,000 listeners, 10,000, that ratio of 56 is probably going to change. I'm going to bet it's going to get smaller. It might go down to like 25%. But right now, we got a small sample size. I'm going to take all this data with a grain of salt, but it's still better than where I was 10 years ago when I had no idea what people were doing or how they were interpreting this music. So I'm going to move on to the rest of the songs, and since I've already created the formula once, I just drag this thing down and I get to see the save ratio for the other songs. And so what we could see here is the save ratio is extremely high for the other songs. So like we could see right here, 69% for the first song on my album. 81% of users are saving Hipster Girl. Slide, which is the second song on my EP, is doing 100% save ratio. So like I was saying, Spring has more data, and in this case, it or has a larger sample size of 88, which is like more than all the other ones combined, and that has the smallest save ratio. So the trend with collecting data, from my experience, is the larger your sample gets, the more conservative your data is. As in, like, it's better for you to assume that only, in this case, half of the people are going to like your music than for me to look at Slide, which has 100% save ratio. Because you know, in reality, even throughout life, you know that reality tends to show itself the longer you let things exist. Like, I'm getting philosophical here, but so that's the save ratio to listeners. I can also do a save ratio to streams. You know, just another way of looking at it. You know, maybe a save ratio helps you understand how many users like your music enough to save it, but instead of understanding what your save ratio is by the amount of listeners, maybe you want to say, okay, if I get this song streamed 1,000 times or 100 times, how many people will actually save it when I serve it potentially to users more than once? So let me do saves on column E divided by streams in column B. Okay, so now this paints a much more different story. So my save ratio for Spring was 56% of users, but when it comes down to the stream itself, it's 20%. So 1 out of 5 streams leads to a save. Okay, much different story. And what I'm super curious about is this thing, this total row I just put in here. Back in the Spotify user interface, we don't have a total statistic row. So it's more helpful for me to move things to a spreadsheet because, again, I get a little bit more control on my data. Now that I have a total row, look at that. I can create a sum column and sum all the streams for each song and create a total aggregate is what we would call it in the data field. Same thing for listeners. I'm going to create a sum column. And because I'm in Google Sheets, I can just drag this over and it's going to create a sum for everything. So now I have total saves, I have total streams, total listeners, I have total views. Not sure what to do with that one yet. And now I can create a save ratio for the total. So much different story here. So I like blending. I'll also create one for the streams. So much different story here. So I like blending all the songs and creating a total statistic because it makes my sample size bigger. So all together, I have data on 139 streams and 74 listeners. And it looks like my save ratio for listeners is 71% in aggregate. And my save ratio for streams is 38% in aggregate. I don't like dealing with decimals when it comes to percents, so I'm just going to simplify it here. 72% save ratio to listeners and 38% save ratio to streams. So, what does that mean for me? Well, my goal with this music was to share my story, my perspective on my own life from throughout my 20s. And if you're making art as an artist, that's essentially your goal. Your goal as an artist is to either challenge the way people think about their reality or lend perspective into another reality. And in this case, it's the way I see the world and the way I share it. So 38%, that's a win to me if I'm resonating with 38% of my streams, because that's essentially saying if I have a conversation with my music to 10 people, 4 of them are going to relate to me, give or take 1 listener. That is accomplishing my goal. And if I keep doing what I'm doing and I keep putting out music, I'll potentially be relating over time to 40% of the people I get to meet virtually through my music. And again, that number can change dramatically depending on whether or not you are even reaching the right people. I mean, my life and where I'm at right now, these are stories and concepts about life that maybe 30-year-olds would get. My guess is I'm relating to people that are a little bit older, probably in their 30s. I can validate that with the use of Spotify's audience data. So, why am I resonating 4 out of 10, which I believe is a pretty high ratio? Well, it's probably because I'm connecting with the right people. And when I look at the data here, about half of the people that are listening to my music are between the ages of 28 and 34, and that's essentially where I'm at in my age group. and looks like I've got some listeners at 35 and up. So my second largest group looks like 29% is between the ages of 23 and 27. And then my next largest segment of ages is 18 to 22 at 16%. So 28 to 34-year-old males, largest segment, that's me. I'm probably getting that save button hit by essentially people relating through their 30s like I am. Mission accomplished. Again, if you're trying to make art, not everyone's going to get it. If you're trying to make music, not everyone's going to be interested in your music. Yeah, sure, it might be at the surface level interesting to people, but if you're trying to make a long-term career project, have basically a journey and longevity to music and making music, you're not going to have a lot of fun if people are not relating to your music. And you sure as hell are not going to make money in the long term by having people pay to go to your shows and meet you if they don't connect with you through your music. Those are essentially the big takeaways. Getting that data, getting that validation of how people are relating to your music, and then understanding the audience that is appreciating your music and listening to it. Learn from those 2 points and repeat. Just keep having conversations with the data. Looks like there's some data on countries, but not where I'm at right now. I'm not really interested in getting music around the world. I'm just trying to connect with people in my own backyard, the United States. So I hope this was enlightening. I hope this helps anyone who's starting out their music career to set expectations for themselves and not get discouraged if their results are not what you expected. So a couple of takeaways I want to give you guys. Number one, I'm going to share the sheet that you saw in the video. I'll put it in the link in my video description. And number two, if anyone wants to subscribe and get notified on a video on advertising, I have an advertising campaign on Facebook and Spotify, and I'll be digging into the results of that sometime later this week. I'm actually going to let the week finish, and then I'll post the video maybe next week. Not maybe next week, I will post a video next week. Got to hold myself accountable to these things. So, to anyone who's made it this far, thank you for having an interest in topics like these. And again, I'm starting my journey. We'll see where this goes. We'll see where the data takes us. Someone much further along in their career once told me that what's even cooler than having people listening to your music is just having it out there so that new opportunities and connections are made with people that are also on their journey. I might not ever make money from music per se, but who knows what kind of projects are out there with people that heard one of my songs Spring like on a playlist somewhere a year down the road. I'm very much looking forward to that future, and in the meantime, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Marketing science, writing music. Have a great weekend, and I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving.